Well, we don't know where the Neanderthals last existed. Gibraltar is certainly one of the places where we have relatively late dating.
Long ago, another kind of human walked beside us, but they disappeared, leaving behind only bones and questions. Questions like, why did they vanish while we survived? Now, after years of wondering, scientists have uncovered a powerful clue hidden in ancient DNA. It's a quiet truth buried in their blood, one that may finally explain why Neanderthals never made it. Join us as we explore the real reason behind the disappearance and why it matters in this modern time. What happened to the Neanderthals? For hundreds of years, scientists and experts have puzzled over a big question from ancient times. Why did our species, Homo sapiens, manage to spread and survive all over the planet, while the Neanderthals, our closest ancient relatives, simply disappeared? There have been so many guesses over the years. Some blamed changes in the climate, others believed we competed too hard with each other, and a few even thought sickness played a role. But now, a brand new study published in the journal Scientific Reports has added an exciting new piece to the puzzle. And this time, it's all about blood types. In this study, researchers closely examined and compared the blood group genes of both Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. What they found could explain why our ancestors made it through the harsh challenges of ancient times, while the Neanderthals, no matter how tough and clever they were, may have had hidden genetic weaknesses that eventually worked against them. The answers seem to lie in how our blood was wired, giving Homo sapiens a better shot at long-term survival and worldwide expansion. Neanderthals began to branch off from our shared ancestors around 400,000 years ago. Over time, they became their own unique type of early human. They were incredibly well suited for life in the freezing lands of Europe and parts of Asia. Their bodies were shorter and more muscular, which helped them stay warm. Interestingly, their brains were actually bigger than ours when compared to body size. They had strong facial features too, especially those heavy brow ridges that gave them a distinct look. But Neanderthals were far from the dumb cave people they were once thought to be. In fact, the deeper scientists dig into their past, the more impressive they seem. They were fierce hunters who could take down massive animals like mammoths and woolly rhinos. Their tools were advanced for their time, called Mousterian tools, and showed careful design and clever thinking. They knew how to make fire, build homes, and most touchingly, they looked after each other. They took care of the sick and the old. They didn't just leave them behind. And when someone passed away, they didn't just toss the body away, they buried their dead, sometimes adding special items to the grave, which suggests they may have believed in something beyond life. What's even more surprising is the discovery of Neanderthal art. Yes, actual art. On cave walls and in stone carvings, scientists have found evidence that Neanderthals expressed themselves through drawings and markings. These weren't just random doodles. They showed thought, creativity, and maybe even emotion. It forces us to rethink how we see them. They weren't just rough survivors. They had culture, they had imagination, they may have even had some form of spirituality. So with all this strength, intelligence, and creativity, why didn't they make it? That's where the blood group study becomes important. It looks like some of their genetic traits, especially linked to their blood, may have made them more vulnerable in the long run. So keep watching to explore more about it. Possible reasons behind their disappearance. While Homo sapiens had more variety and flexibility in their blood types, which helped them fight off diseases and adapt to new environments, Neanderthals may have had more limited options. And when survival depends on your body being able to adjust to harsh climates, infections, and changes in diet and surroundings, that genetic flexibility can make all the difference. However, it wasn't just brute strength or sharper tools that helped Homo sapiens thrive. It might have been something as hidden as the blood flowing in their veins. Something silent but powerful. Something that allowed them to keep going, to spread out, and to leave behind the only surviving human species, us. For a very long time, thousands and thousands of generations, Neanderthals were the top human species in the places they lived. They ruled the colder regions of Europe and parts of Asia, living strong and steady for ages. But then something shifted. About 60,000 to 70,000 years ago, a wave of change began. Homo sapiens, our direct ancestors, started leaving their African homeland in growing numbers, spreading far and wide across the earth. These early humans came from warm climates, but they were flexible and clever. Unlike any other species before them, Homo sapiens had a special ability to adjust to all sorts of environments. As they moved into new lands, They eventually crossed paths with the Neanderthals, and for a while both groups shared the same world. They didn't just bump into each other, they mixed, lived close, and even had children together. This isn't guesswork. Scientists have proven through DNA that nearly every modern human who isn't originally from Africa carries a small trace of Neanderthal genes in their body. These bits of ancient DNA are like footprints from those long-forgotten encounters. But this living side by side didn't go on forever. By around 40,000 years ago, the Neanderthals started fading away. Fossil records tell us their presence disappeared. No more bones, no more tools, they were simply gone. Why they vanished is still one of history's biggest unsolved mysteries. Experts have argued over the reasons for years. Some think it was the changing weather. Others believe it came down to fights over food and land. There are also theories about differences in brain power. But now, a brand new discovery is adding a surprising idea to the mix, and it has to do with something as personal and essential as blood. Blood keeps everything alive. It moves oxygen to the lungs, delivers nutrients to every corner of the body, and protects us from sickness. It's not just red liquid, it's life itself. And just like people come in different shapes and colors, blood also has types. The most familiar way to group it is by using 4 categories: A, B, and O. These groups are incredibly important. They decide whether someone can safely receive another person's blood, and they affect how our immune systems fight off infections. But there's another detail that matters too, the Rh factor. This is a protein that can either be present on red blood cells or not. If it's there, your blood is Rh positive. If not, you're Rh negative. This tiny difference might not seem like a big deal, but it can cause serious issues, especially when it comes to having babies. If a mother and her unborn child have mismatched Rh types, it can lead to dangerous complications. By looking into these blood traits and comparing them between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, scientists are finding new clues. These differences could explain why some groups survived better than others. Blood types and immune responses may have helped early Homo sapiens deal with new diseases, changing climates, and shifting diets more effectively. Meanwhile, Neanderthals might have lacked that same biological edge, and in a world where only the strongest or the most adaptable could make it through, that small difference could have changed everything. So while strength, smarts, and tools played their part, it may have been the quiet work of blood flowing beneath the surface that helped decide which humans would continue writing the story of mankind and which would fade into the past. Scientists have long known that where people come from and the diseases they've faced over time are closely tied to their blood types. For example, those with type O blood seem to have a natural shield against severe malaria, while people with type A blood might be more prone to illnesses like smallpox. These differences in blood types, shaped by evolution, had a big impact on which groups grew stronger and which ones faced deep genetic challenges. Now, a fresh study from Aix-Marseille University has added something truly eye-opening to this story. A group of researchers dove deep into the ancient past, decoding the blood-related genes of both Neanderthals and their close relatives, including early Homo sapiens and Denisovans. The research covered a wide range of ancient humans: 22 early Homo sapiens, 14 Neanderthals, and 1 Denisovan, all of whom lived between 120,000 and 20,000 years ago. They focused their analysis on the details of red blood cell traits and how these varied across the different individuals. By looking at these ancient blood group genes, the team managed to piece together a clear picture of how these early humans adapted, or failed to adapt, to the world around them. The results were stunning. The two species, although related, had some very clear genetic differences, especially when it came to blood types and how diverse they were. One of the major discoveries was that Neanderthals had a rare type of Rh blood group. This type didn't match up well with the blood of Denisovans or Homo sapiens, and that mismatch had serious consequences. Here's why it matters. When a Neanderthal woman with this rare Rh type had a child with a Homo sapiens or Denisovan man, the baby's blood could trigger a dangerous condition known as hemolytic disease of the newborn, or HDN. In this condition, if the mother's blood lacks the Rh protein but the baby inherits it from the father, her immune system sees the baby's blood as a threat. Her body starts attacking the baby's red blood cells, causing serious harm. This can lead to extreme anemia, yellowing of the skin, brain damage, or even the loss of the baby if nothing is done. Today, doctors have a way to stop this with a simple shot that protects the baby. But back then, Neanderthals had no such help. So if interbreeding with other human groups happened more often, this deadly condition could have made it much harder for Neanderthals to have healthy children. Over time, this would have meant fewer and fewer Neanderthals were born, causing their numbers to slowly shrink. But there's still another question. Why didn't Neanderthals adapt like Homo sapiens did? The research uncovered something important here too. While early Homo sapiens began developing new blood types and changing quickly to match their environments, Neanderthals stayed mostly the same. Their blood types barely changed over thousands and thousands of years. This tells us that Neanderthals may have lived in smaller, more closed-off groups. They didn't mix or evolve as much, and that made them less prepared for the changes around them. In contrast, Homo sapiens evolved fast. Their red blood cells adapted to deal with new climates, shifting diets, and emerging diseases. This flexibility may have given them a huge edge over the Neanderthals, who were stuck with the same genetic setup for generations. The lack of change, the small group sizes, and the rare Rh blood type all added up and pushed Neanderthals closer to extinction. This discovery about their blood doesn't just fill in another blank about our past, it completely changes how we understand why Neanderthals disappeared. Sure, the environment changed and there was competition, but now we see that something as quiet and invisible as blood could have played one of the biggest roles of all. As scientists keep unlocking the secrets buried in ancient DNA, we're not just learning about how people lived, we're learning why we're still here and why others aren't. The mystery of the Neanderthals is a powerful one, filled with emotion, science, and deep human truth. And with every new finding, we're one step closer to understanding how life chose one path and left another behind. Beyond trying to know the mystery behind the Neanderthals' disappearance, it is necessary to understand who they really were and why their disappearance really interests people. Who are the Neanderthals? If we could turn back the hands of time and walk the earth thousands of years ago, we would not have been the only humans around. Another kind of human once walked beside us, different in some ways, yet similar enough to call family. They were the Neanderthals, an ancient group of humans who lived long before history was written down. Though their bones now rest deep beneath the soil, their story still matters, especially as we search for answers about why they vanished while we, Homo sapiens, survived. And yes, their story is closely tied to the mystery of blood, something invisible yet powerful enough to shape the future of an entire species. Neanderthals first appeared on the scene around 400,000 years ago. They didn't come from nowhere. They evolved from an earlier group of ancient humans called Homo heidelbergensis, a species that lived in parts of Africa and Europe. When some of them migrated into Europe and Western Asia, they slowly changed, adapting to the cold, harsh world around them. Over time, they became what we now call Neanderthals. These people weren't visitors. They were Europe's original humans, surviving ice ages, hunting enormous animals, and finding ways to live in one of the toughest environments on Earth. They looked different from us in ways you'd notice right away. Neanderthals had broad noses, strong jaws, and thick brow ridges that made their faces stand out. Their bodies were short and stocky, which helped keep them warm. Their muscles were powerful, built for strength and survival in freezing conditions. Even their bones were thicker and heavier than ours. They were made for endurance, not speed. But don't be fooled by their rugged looks. These early humans were not simple-minded or wild. In fact, they were anything but. For a long time, people believed that Neanderthals were less intelligent than Homo sapiens. But modern discoveries have proven just the opposite. They had the brains, the skills, and the heart. They knew how to plan and work together. They used tools crafted with care and precision. They hunted mammoths and other large animals in groups using teamwork and courage. They cooked food, shaped spears, wore clothes made from animal hides, and lived in shelters that protected them from the cold. More touching still is what they did for one another. Scientists have found skeletons of Neanderthals who lived long after being injured, some with crushed limbs, blindness, or missing teeth. This means someone must have cared for them. In a time when survival was everything, they didn't leave the weak behind. They showed kindness, compassion, and loyalty. When a loved one passed away, they sometimes placed the body in a grave. Sometimes they even left behind flowers or special objects, suggesting that they believed in something more than just life and death. These small actions whisper of deep emotions, a sense of connection, and perhaps even love. They weren't just about survival, they also had creativity. In caves across Europe, they left behind art, handprints, engravings, patterns, and even necklaces made from animal teeth or shells. These weren't accidents. These markings were intentional. They tell us that Neanderthals had a sense of beauty, of meaning, of self-expression. This kind of symbolic thinking was once thought to belong only to Homo sapiens, but clearly Neanderthals had it too. For hundreds of thousands of years, they thrived, but around 60,000 to 40,000 years ago, things started to shift. Homo sapiens began to spread out of Africa, traveling across continents and eventually arriving in Europe, Neanderthal land. At first, these two types of humans coexisted. They saw each other, they likely exchanged ideas, and sometimes they had children together. That's why many people today, especially those from Europe and Asia, still carry traces of Neanderthal DNA in their genes. It's a reminder that we were once closer than we think, but that peaceful time didn't last forever. The Neanderthals began to disappear. Slowly, their numbers dropped until one day they were simply gone. Like we already know, their last known remains date back to about 40,000 years ago. Why they vanished has remained one of the biggest puzzles in human history. People have suggested all kinds of reasons. Maybe they couldn't handle the changing climate, or perhaps Homo sapiens took their land and resources. Some think there were violent conflicts. Others suggest they didn't reproduce fast enough. The truth? It might not be just one reason, but many working together. And now, thanks to a recent breakthrough in science, we're learning that their very blood may have played a key role. Blood, the quiet river that runs through every living body, holds secrets we're only beginning to understand. In our story, it may have been both a blessing and a curse. A new study showed that Neanderthals had a rare Rh blood type, something that caused dangerous problems when they had children with Homo sapiens, or even other Neanderthals with different Rh types. The result was a condition known today as hemolytic disease of the newborn. This deadly reaction could make babies sick or cause them to pass away before birth. And back then, there were no hospitals, no medicine, no treatments to stop it. So even if Neanderthals did fall in love, build homes, and raise families, their children may not have survived. Over time, this would have meant fewer and fewer babies. Generation by generation, their population would have quietly shrunk. This connects us back to their story in a powerful way. We often think of extinction as something loud and dramatic, like a meteor or a war, but sometimes it's slow and invisible. A tiny protein in the blood, a silent immune reaction, a baby who never gets the chance to grow up. These are the things that may have decided the fate of an entire species. Even though the Neanderthals are gone, they're not forgotten. They left behind more than fossils and tools. They left behind stories written in our DNA and the way we think, in the mystery of who we are. They remind us that being human isn't just about having the biggest brain or the sharpest tool. It's about connection, adaptability, and survival. It's about love, pain, care, and the blood that binds us all together. So when we ask, who were the Neanderthals, we're not just digging into history, we're reaching into ourselves. Their story is our story. Their loss is part of our journey. And as we keep uncovering their world, we may discover even more about what it really means to be human, and more reasons why the Homo sapiens survived more. When sickness silently took over their world. Long ago, when early Homo sapiens began spreading across the world from Africa, they didn't just carry fire and tools, they also brought something completely invisible but incredibly powerful: new diseases. These early humans moving into Europe and Asia were unknowingly carrying germs and viruses that their bodies had already learned how to fight. But for the Neanderthals, who had lived in those regions for hundreds of thousands of years without contact with outside populations, these strange invaders were a silent threat. Neanderthals had built their immune systems based on the environment they lived in. They were exposed to local bacteria, familiar parasites, and cold weather infections. Their immune systems had adapted to those challenges and nothing more. But once Homo sapiens arrived, everything changed. The germs that came along with them, germs from warmer climates and different ecosystems, were entirely new to the Neanderthal body. Their immune systems weren't prepared, and they had no natural protection. For them, even a mild virus could have turned deadly. While Homo sapiens had greater genetic variety, especially in their immune-related genes, Neanderthals had much less. Their population was smaller, and they often lived in isolated groups. This meant that their bodies didn't have a wide range of immune responses to fall back on. Their defenses were limited. So when new diseases entered their world, it's likely that those infections spread quickly and hit them hard. This biological disadvantage may have played a quiet but serious role in their downfall. While they were strong, skilled, and intelligent, their bodies couldn't fight off these invisible enemies. And in a time where there were no medicines or doctors, being unable to handle sickness meant entire families, even whole communities, could be wiped out before they had a chance to recover. Strangely enough, this ancient immune story hasn't completely vanished. Modern science has shown that bits of Neanderthal DNA still live inside many people today, and some of those genes are linked to how our bodies react to infections even now. In fact, scientists discovered something surprising during the COVID-19 pandemic. A specific stretch of DNA inherited from Neanderthals was found in people who got severely sick from the virus. Those who carried this genetic piece were more likely to experience life-threatening symptoms. It was a reminder that the story of the Neanderthals didn't end in the caves. They left marks that still shape our health in the modern world. So, while blood types may have affected their ability to reproduce, their limited immune strength could have made survival itself more difficult. Their bodies simply weren't built to handle the wave of new sicknesses brought by Homo sapiens. The mental leap that set Homo sapiens apart. As we search for reasons why Neanderthals faded away while Homo sapiens took over the world, the answers may lie not just in our bodies, but in our minds and how we live together. Though Neanderthals were clever and skilled in their own right, modern science now shows that the way our species thought, communicated, and connected may have given us the edge we needed to outlast them. Both Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens used tools, but the way those tools were made and how quickly they changed tells a deeper story. Neanderthals often used one style of tool, the same techniques and materials over long stretches of time. They had sharp stone points and scrapers, and they knew how to prepare materials with care. Their tools worked, no doubt, but they didn't evolve much. Meanwhile, Homo sapiens were constantly inventing and upgrading. New tools popped up more often, made from different kinds of materials like bone, antler, and ivory. These tools were lighter, more delicate, and often more specialized, used for sewing, fishing, carving, or even painting. The difference wasn't just in what was made, it was in the thinking behind it. Our ancestors seemed to imagine more possibilities, solving problems in creative ways. But tools are only one part of the story. When we look closer, we begin to see something even more important: how people thought and shared ideas. Neanderthals showed some signs of symbolic thinking, like using red ochre or decorating graves, but Homo sapiens went much further. We filled caves with paintings, created figurines out of stone and bone, and wore jewelry made from shells and animal teeth. These weren't just pretty things. They were signs of imagination, of meaning beyond survival. It shows a mind that could dream, plan, and maybe even tell stories. And then there's language. We may never know exactly how Neanderthals spoke, but scientists believe they could likely produce a range of sounds, maybe even words. They had a version of the FOXP2 gene, which helps control speech in humans. But having the gene doesn't mean their language was as rich or complex as ours. Homo sapiens likely had more advanced ways of communicating, language that allowed us to pass down knowledge, to organize in bigger groups, and to teach children not just what to do, but why to do it. Language helped us form stronger bonds, make smarter decisions, and work together in ways that went far beyond hunting or shelter building. Social life may have been where the biggest difference showed. Neanderthals often lived in small, close-knit groups. This helped with survival in tough places, but it also meant they had fewer connections and less support when times got hard. Homo sapiens, on the other hand, formed larger and more complex communities. People didn't just live with their families, they traded, traveled, and shared with others far away. This network of connections became a safety net. If food was low in one area, they could move or rely on others. If a new idea was born, it could spread quickly. We didn't just survive together, we grew together. Even the way Homo sapiens handled roles may have made a difference. There's evidence that early human communities divided tasks in smart ways. While some hunted, others gathered or took care of children or made tools. This meant more work got done more efficiently. It also gave more people, especially women and the elderly, a chance to contribute to the group's survival. Neanderthals likely didn't organize life this way. Everyone may have done similar work, which can be harder to sustain when times get rough. The hidden traces of Neanderthals still living in us. Even though Neanderthals disappeared from the Earth thousands of years ago, they never really left us completely. A part of them still lives on inside our bodies, quietly tucked into our DNA. When Homo sapiens and Neanderthals met long ago, They didn't just compete for space, they also formed relationships. Some of those connections led to children, and those children carried a mix of both human and Neanderthal genes. As generations passed, those genes were passed down again and again. And today, many people, especially those with ancestry outside Africa, still carry small pieces of Neanderthal DNA, about 1 to 2% in most cases. At first glance, it might seem like such a tiny number wouldn't matter, but scientists have found that these ancient genes still affect how our bodies work today. Some of them help with how we fight off infections. For example, certain immune system genes inherited from Neanderthals are still active in many people. These genes may have once helped early humans survive in new environments by offering better protection against new bacteria and viruses. But that protection can sometimes come with a price. These same genes are also linked to a higher risk of allergies and overactive immune responses, which can cause inflammation and autoimmune conditions in modern humans. The effects go beyond just immunity. Neanderthal DNA has been found to influence how our skin reacts to sunlight. In fact, it may be one reason why some people burn easily while others tan. Since Neanderthals lived in Europe and Asia, places with less sunlight, having lighter skin may have helped them absorb more vitamin D. That adaptation got passed down to us too. And then there's sleep. Some inherited traits from Neanderthals affect our internal body clocks. These ancient genes may be the reason why some people are night owls or struggle with sleep problems. Studies have shown that certain Neanderthal variants can impact the way our bodies respond to light and regulate our sleep-wake cycles. In the modern world, with artificial lights and late-night screens, this can make sleep even more difficult for those who carry those traits. So even though Neanderthals are long gone, their story continues through us. Their DNA is not just a fossil in a lab, it's part of our living bodies. Now, what do you think about the recent scientific DNA study about the Neanderthals? Do you think the blood test study was part of the reasons they seem to have no trace? Let's hear from you in the comments. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.